So let me show you how to deal with that scooped back waist issue on garments that are fitted still, but they extend down to your hip or their torso length. They're not ending at the waist and they're still not loose. We're still dealing with this contouring for like a fisheye dart like we see here, or maybe even a princess seam. And the princess seam can go to the armhole or the shoulder. So we know that pulling it in with the dart isn't going to make a difference. Like this does fit going across. It's just too long here. And this is because the pattern is either too flat for you back here, or maybe you have a hip tilt or a sway back and your back hip area here pushes up on the pattern or the garment. And so you're getting all this excess here and you're getting some diagonal lines. You know, look at, we can have our side seams all matching. This is even working here. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll be too tight and it'll even be hiking up like this and you just can't get it to open up and sit down at your hip. So we need to figure out how to get rid of this amount here. And I'm going to show you how to do this with a princess seam, both styles, fisheye dart, and with your center back either on the fold or with a seam. So they're a little bit different from one another. And it can get a little tricky, especially when you have this shaping that goes through the waist and extends down to the hip. It definitely hinders some of the options that you'll have to you. So make sure that you mark how much you want to get rid of. And I would do so at your narrowest place, like the place that you feel like that this is all kind of stemming from, which is usually the narrowest place on your back. And we're going to do it in a wedge shape here. So we're not going to affect this side seam. So if you want to mimic it and see what might work best for you as far as the amount, you could pin it out in sort of a pie slice right there to see what's going to work. All right, so let me show you those adjustments. Okay, let's work on the pattern for this scooped lower back waist. In this example, we're going to keep the center back on the fold, and later in the video, I'm going to show you how to address this if your pattern has a center back seam, and also for princess seams on the fold or with the center back seam. This example right here is for a fisheye dart, and the back is on the fold. When we want to remove this amount here, essentially, we're just going to be shortening the garment. Like if you see the before and after, it's just going to look like all we did was raise up the hem. But because we have this shaping going right through here in the small of the back, we need to also shorten this dart, and we don't need to just shorten it here. What we need to do is shorten it right here. We're pinching it out right here at that spot where we need to hike up the garment a little bit and get it fitting against the body where it needs to be fitted. So this method may seem a little bit fussy because there's probably 3 or 4 ways you could do this. But what I like about this is that in the end, you have less things to worry about affecting other seams of your garment, and we're going to maintain this lower portion here. So I'm going to make a couple of cuts here. I'm going to show you exactly how to do this, but I'm going to show you why we have to do it this way so you understand what's happening here. The goal is to keep our dart in line up and down. So when we raise this up, it would just cant the dart off to an angle. So that's why we're going to cut here, which is going to pull the dart back over here, just like that. And I'm going to trace the side seam onto some paper so that I can maintain this lower portion. The only fussy thing about this is making sure that your dart width right here, that those markings are in the right place once you're done, because essentially we're not really raising them up. We want it to stay in the same location on your body. We're just trying to split the difference. So we're trying to remove some from the top and some from the bottom. So when we raise this up, it sort of looks like we're raising the dart up to here, but we're gonna just split the amount that we've raised it and lower just the fullness of the dart to here, creating new markings for that waist section of your dart. So, all right, let's get to the changes, and I'll show you exactly how we're going to do this, keeping your garment on the fold, dart intact, hem circumference intact, and everything sewing together. All right, so like in the PDF, we're going to first create line A, straight from center back through the fullest part of your fisheye dart. We're going to have a hinge right here. Our other one is going to be located right here, and we're going to call this line B. So this is A and this is B, and these are our 2 hinges. And the next thing we want to do is create a guide straight through the middle of our dart. So just connect the dots, top to bottom, straight through the middle. All right, and get your extra piece of paper here. So now we're gonna cut line A and line B and end at our hinges. All right, we got our spare piece of paper here. We're gonna slip it under. You really only need a piece over here, but it'll be a little easier to deal with if I have a larger piece. We're gonna tape this piece of paper to the upper portion of the garment because it's not going to be moving, just the lower portion is. Now, before we do any of the fun stuff, we're going to trace our side seam right here. So make sure that these cut pieces are back to neutral. And we're going to trace our side seam here, just this lower portion here, and a bit of the hem. So include all the way through your seam line there. All right, so I'm going to tape mine to the table. I'm going to line up my center back on the upper portion to a line on the mat there, just so it doesn't move while I'm working. And you can do more if you want, just to make sure. And now we get to do the fun stuff. All right, so we need to know exactly how much we want to take out. So let's measure on our center back here exactly how much we pinched out. And we're gonna create a hatch mark on the center back going up from our cut line, like that. Now we're gonna raise this lower section. I'm gonna keep the dart section on top. And we're also going to, let's create a center back line here, all the way down here. So we have it. Should do that when we trace our side seam. All right, so now raise this lower section here. I'm gonna keep my dart on top until we're touching our hatch mark there, and keep our seam straight. Let's make sure I traced that straight. So now we can affix this right here. And you can see there's our original side seam there. We've pinched it out right through here. All right, so let's unstick our paper here. And now I'm gonna measure the amount that I raised this dart right here at the waist. It's gonna be about the same as the center back, but probably a little bit less. We just need to lower this max width of the dart there, half the amount we raised it, so that it's kind of in the middle. We've only taken away from the top and the bottom equally. So we're going to measure down half that amount right there. And now this is our new fullest part of our dart. Redraw our dart legs to that new line there, and same with the lower. And just make sure you use your new full width part. If you forget to do this, I don't think you're gonna have a huge impact. You might find that your waist gets hiked a little bit, half the amount that you raised it up. All right, so now we have this little funny shape right here. So how do we deal with that? So we have this nice side seam here, and we can tell that it still matches our original side seam, but it's gonna be a little bit harder to straighten this out when it looks like it's at quite an angle right there. So now this is why I said make sure that you include up to your seam line right there. That's the most important part, is that it matches the front seam. So if we were to lay this on our side seam here, so let's draw in this side seam amount there. If we were to lay this on our side seam and sew it together, we can draw in our transition and actually see what it really looks like to get there. It's a lot easier when you start seeing exactly what the transition needs to look like. Originally, it looked like it was quite a little angle and that it would want to dip below like this, but it doesn't need to do that. You just need to make sure that the transition is good. And if you had added that, it would have given a little tail to the bottom of the pattern. We don't need that. So we're going to just line it up on that seam line. Look at the seam transition all the way, and you can trim it when it's in this position too, if that makes it easier. And that looks a lot better. Let's get rid of this paper here and here. All right, so it may look like we've made massive changes, but we really haven't. Let's compare it. So when we lay it on the original here, we can see really we just raised it this little wedge, right? Just this little amount. The biggest impact that we did though was we pinched it out along the fullest part of the dart, maintaining the dart's position above and below. And we only got rid of that excess that we really didn't need. So this is a great way to keep your pattern on the fold, maintain your dart and your hem circumference. All right, let me show you how to do this with a center back seam. It's a lot easier. All right, so let's do this exact same change, but for a pattern with a center back seam, and it's slightly less fussy. So we still need our line A. So we're gonna square across center back through that fullest part of the waist dart. We're gonna create a hinge right here. And then our other hinge is going to be, again, right here, but we're gonna cut along the dart leg from here down up. We're just gonna cut just on the outside of the dart leg. All right, so let's cut our hinge. First one here at the waist. And now this one here at the dart. And basically we're doing this so that we can keep our dart exactly the same and in alignment. Now let's draw a line from top to bottom, connecting the dart there so that we can keep it in alignment when we shift it. All right, so we need to know exactly how much we want to remove. We're gonna square up on the center back line here, that amount. And now we're gonna raise up this whole lower section up to that hatch mark there. I'm gonna do it right at my center back there. Now, we don't mind that this isn't on a straight line anymore because we have a seam. So let's secure this section here. And now we're gonna take this dart all by itself and we're gonna line up the center line here. Just gonna pull it down, keep that dart in alignment there. And we're gonna put a little piece of paper back there as well. Now the one little fussy thing we need to do here is change where it looks like the fullest part of this dart is, because really we want it kind of in the middle of this lower line and this upper line here. So we're gonna split that amount there where they intersect, and you can actually kind of see when you lift it up where they intersect. And that's where your new full dart point is going to be located, right there. You don't need to change this one here or this one here. We just need to change these two. Now, if you want to draw this onto another piece of paper and then put it on top to get a nice clean look, I don't blame you one bit. So let's put a little piece of paper behind our dart here, get it all nice and secure, just like that. And there you have it. And if you need to add your center back seam, you can do so. Just make sure you still have your right angle here and here. We haven't changed anything. Hem circumference is fine. Our dart is exactly where it was before, except that we shortened it right there in the middle. All right, so now if we compared it to the original, you can sort of see that it canted this lower section here towards the center back. It even brought it in a tiny bit there at the side seam, but we didn't change any of our circumference down here. And if we lined up just the lower section, you can see that's all exactly the same. So all we really did was shorten the garment overall, but the tricky bit was the fact that we really needed to remove it down the center of the dart, keeping the dart integrity, but just removing that excess that we didn't need anymore. All right, let me show you how to do both these adjustments on princess seams. All right, so now we're gonna make these changes to princess seam torso length garments that are on the fold, and then I'll show you how to do it with a seam as well. So we can do the exact same adjustments whether your torso has a princess seam to the armhole like this or to the shoulder. So I'll show you on one of them. We're gonna need to draw our line A like from the PDF, and that line A is going through our narrowest location. You can see the dart that was in this before it was made into a princess seam. So we're gonna square over. I have a notch there at my fullest bit there. And you can do yours wherever you pinched out your fabric, because that's usually in the narrowest place of your garment. And then I'm gonna lay this one on top of each other, right on top of the seam line to make sure. I'm going to just draw the line from that narrowest part over here to the side seam. I'm just trying to keep it in the narrowest place. All right, and then right here is where our hinge is gonna be. only on one piece for the princess seams with a center back fold. All right, so now we're gonna slice right across our center back here, all the way across. And this one here, we're gonna do with a hinge. So the hinge is right here at the side seam. This one's the one that opens up. All right, now take the amount that you wanna get rid of, and we're gonna square up along center back that amount. We're gonna mark that exact same amount along the seam line of this side back. We're gonna overlap the lower center back on top up to the line. And for this one, we're gonna tilt it. We're gonna use that hinge, and we're looking at the seam line right there. That's where it needs to match. So we're gonna get it close as possible using that hinge, and we're going to affix the tape there. And so now you can kind of see we've got this nice little cant here. Now the only thing we really need to worry about at this point, because we've kept this on a center back straight line because we did a parallel adjustment here, we need to make sure our transition is good, like always. So I'm going to look at it here, and we can tell that it didn't really change. However, the side seam could have changed. So let's just see how it looks when we line it up as if it's sewn. And that's pretty good. I like that. And that makes sense. We haven't really changed this lower portion. It just looks like we have because we changed the angle. Now the last thing you might want to do is smooth out any bumps that you have right here and make sure that that hinge is secure. All right, the very last thing we're going to do is make sure we have a center back right angle here. That's the one thing I think we could probably fix a little bit. And maybe we already had this issue on this pattern piece to begin with, since we didn't really change it. It's probably just the way this pattern piece got copied. So we'll fix it just like that. And you can see now we have our little center back right angle. Once you trim your excess off and you've secured all of your edges, made sure your transitions are good, you've got your right angles, you are good to go. You can do this on your princess seam to the armhole as well. All right, so let's compare how we did here. Definitely shortened it. And see, when you see something like this, you see how it looks like we've changed the circumference here. We haven't. If you were to line these up with one another, you'd see that they're exactly the same. So if you needed to change your circumference, that's a different issue. But if we're just trying to get rid of some of that extra fabric and shorten it there, we've managed to do that right where we needed to do it, at that narrowest place, which is going to react differently if we just cut it off the bottom. We really need to get rid of it here where it was getting hung up. All right, and then on the side back piece, big difference there. All right, you're good to go. Now I'm going to show you how to do this on a garment that has a center back seam. All right, so now we're going to get rid of this pooling at the waist there, but we have a center back seam, which makes things a lot easier. So again, we're going to square across at our center back at the narrowest place, or where you need to remove it, which is usually the narrowest place. And we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to go narrowest place, just like that. Conversely, if you want, you can tape these two pattern pieces together, lining them up and matching the seam, and then do one line all the way across. You can see mine's not perfectly straight, and that's because I'm prioritizing staying in that narrowest place along the waist. All right, so now I'm going to tape these together with removable tape right here. And we're gonna put a hinge right here, only on this piece, but we're gonna cut both together. So I'm gonna cut along this line here, and then create my hinge. And now when you make this adjustment, remember these are two separate pattern pieces, and we need them to stay that way once we're done. So when we raise our amount, we're going to tape them individually. So let's figure out how much we need to raise this. So I'm gonna mark my amount here on the center back, and my center back line is actually right here. All right, so we have our amount we want to get rid of right here on the center back line there. And you can see this piece is already severed from the pattern because we cut all the way through, just like that. All right, so let's get these back to neutral, just like this. Pull you down, just like that. So it's back to neutral there. And we're gonna hold these two up here, lift up the bottom ones, and then raise it till you get to that point that you really want to get rid of. And then that's all you need to do. Now we need to secure these pieces individually. So we're gonna secure this one to this one. And we can take this one off now, just like that, holding this secure, and secure this one here, just like that. All right, so that's about it on this one. Make sure you add your center back seam allowance if you need to, and or blend it if you need to smooth out this little transition here. And then lastly, we just need to check to make sure that our side seam transition looks really good. Our seam transition here, and we have a center back right angle. And none of those have changed. We haven't altered any of those, so they should still be in good order. All right, let's look at the difference. So again, it really just looks like all we did was remove some length in some ways, but really what we did was removed the length exactly where we needed it. So we kept some contouring. And with a center back seam, you can do a lot with contouring. So you can really see how much this changed. We just got that wedge straight across the lower back there, and it's gonna fit really good. All right, good luck. I hope you're enjoying my Fitopedia fitting series, and if you want to get more fitting tutorials, just check the description. There's going to be links to more, and if you would like a printed version of these mini tutorials, just check the description or look under the video, and eventually you'll be able to make your own little Fitopedia booklet, and it'll be a really great, quick, easy reference to how to diagnose and fit the issue that you're working on. So I hope you're getting a lot out of the series. Please let me know, like, comment, and subscribe, and follow along for more. Thanks for watching.